Hello, everyone. We're back today with episode 6 of Backpacks and Stories. I'm here today with Carlos.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Would you like to start off by introducing yourself?
My name is Carlos. I've known Ben for about a year now, about a year. Um, I live in Toronto, Ontario, or Mississauga, Ontario. We always say Toronto just because it's the region and nobody really knows where Mississauga is. Um, and I work in construction. That's how me and Ben met. Yeah.
Yeah. So, as I just mentioned before we started the recording today, it was a very unique situation that we came to know each other in, and like I've never necessarily got to know a supervisor quite so well. So I used to work in for an agency, a construction agency in Toronto last year, and then the agency guy told me, you we're taking you here, and then you have a little drive to the work site, and yeah, then I heard there was a guy called Carlos, and I thought, there must be some Latino guy, I don't know. And then you pick me up in your ute, and we drive, I don't know, an hour and a half up the road. So,
Yeah, that was
well, no, I was just gonna ask you if you wanted to explain your background.
country wise, like
Yeah.
where I'm from. So I'm half Sudanese and half Egyptian. I was born and raised in Sudan up until the age of 5, and then from Sudan we had gone to Egypt. We stayed there for a couple of weeks, and then from Egypt we flew to Canada. We arrived in Canada in the Detroit border, January 12th, 2001. Um, I remember it was one of the craziest experiences because when we landed, North America had just gotten hit with a massive snowstorm. And as a kid that has gone from 40 plus degree weather to knee high snow, it was the weirdest experience. And we immigrated over, and that's my heritage. I'm also Coptic Orthodox. So for those that don't know, Coptic Orthodox is just a form of orthodoxy that derives from Egypt. The word Coptic derives from the word Egopt, or as we now know it, Egypt. And that's my background.
Nice. I was actually thinking about that. Would you mind telling the whole story?
Which story? Oh, the story of how we met.
And the no about how how you ended up going to Canada in the first place with your family.
Okay. So like the whole immigration side of it.
Mhm.
So my mother had lived down the street from a from the embassy, and every day as my dad had left to work, he owned a couple of pharmacies, but he also used to work for a Sudanese airline called Nile Safari. They were a transport company that transported goods right across Africa, from Europe to Africa. Mind you, this was the golden age of uh, of Africa and the Middle East, and in a completely different time that it was now. So she would always see him traveling back and forth, and then people constantly walking down to the embassy to get visas, and then she would see them walk home all happy or whatever it is. So she goes and she asks my dad. She's like, "Listen, like we should go and apply. We should go and apply to go to Canada." And my dad's like, "Canada? Like, what are you talking about, Canada? Like, who's going to Canada?" Mind you, my dad is from a very small village in Sudan called Kosti. It is about, and I don't know if I'm correct about this, but a 6 hour drive from Khartoum to Kosti. And it's a very, very small little village. Their family is very, very like tight knit and close and stuff, and like everybody lives around each other and kind of within the same regions and whatnot. Now, with all the displacement that's happened with the Sudanese war, obviously they've had to leave and kind of be a little bit more scattered. But thank God they're safe and healthy. Um, And so when my mom had brought that up to my dad's like, "You're crazy. Like, let's forget about it." And then she kept on pushing him. And at the time, you couldn't go to an embassy with like a short sleeve shirt. So my dad actually had to go and specially buy a long sleeve like button up shirt to go to the embassy with. And he's like, okay, whatever. Like let's see what comes of it. So he goes and he applies and okay, how many kids do you have? Four kids. Okay, cool. He goes and the way it works is that you leave and then you come back another day to get the paperwork, from my understanding. So you come back the next day and he would he to surprise the guy gives him the paperwork. You've gotten your visas. You're good to go. So we ended up flying to Detroit, and then from Detroit we crossed the border over with the help of our cousins, not illegally or anything, just for the record. Yeah, we came over legally. I pay my taxes, don't worry. Um, and that's how we ended up coming to Canada.
I think it's a really cool story, and I remember. It's just I love immigration stories, and it's one that sticks out in my head. So how did you feel when you first arrived? Obviously, I imagine it was quite a big culture shock, especially like you say, you were living in a country with 40-degree weather, and then you go to a freezing blizzard.
Yeah. It was definitely a surreal experience, and mind you, I was young enough that we adapt very quickly, and our safe place is our parents. So as long as our parents are nearby, we feel good, and we had a really good community to support us as well with like the Coptic Church here in Mississauga. Does a lot of outreach when newcomers come, and they really help with setting up with a place or or even like setting up with a food bank. So there's a ton of avenues that helped us out, and we felt right at home because there was a ton of other Egyptian Sudanese families, and the church was established. So like we felt right at home very quickly
Mhm.
in
Could
that sense. I think later on in life, I think you do start to notice a difference, especially like once you get so like you're going to school and you know you've learned the language, but like you're still not the same as everyone. Your lunch isn't the same as everybody else. You know, you don't like your hair isn't the same. You don't kind of wear the same clothes. You know, like I think there was only one other kid in my school that was of an Arabic background. He was actually his name was Mina. And for those that know the Coptic faith, there was one of our previous patriarchs, the Pope. His name was Pope Kyrillos, which is what who I was named after. The name Carlos actually happened by complete accident because my real name is Kyrillos Iglesias. And in the immigration office when we had come over, the way the uh, officer had wrote my name or my parents, I don't know, was Caarles. And I never understood the difference until I started going to school and I still had to like spell it, and then teachers would be like, that's not how you spell Carlos. Or no, the first time it was like careless, and I'm like Carlos. I'm like Carlos. Like it's easier, because I had other friends that went from Kiro to Carlos as well in similar respect. But it was it was very hard to get used to that because then people would be like, okay, careless, Carlos, careless, and I just started just being like, okay, it's Carlos, that's it. And then now I'm known as Carlos professionally. I'm known as Carlos. Unfortunately, careless is still how my name is spelled, which I am planning on correcting, but when I get the time to do it.
Yeah. And around the time that you came, had the was this when there was a lot of immigration starting in Canada? A lot of newcomers were arriving.
Honestly, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I do know that like within the Coptic community, there was a pretty big boom up until like the 2010s era. There was a lot of new immigration coming in, and I think even till now, like there's a lot of newcomers that come in from Egypt as well.
Mhm. Which year did you arrive?
2001.
2001. Yeah. Yeah. And did you move straight to Mississauga?
Uh, yes, yes. So the first place we lived in was in Port Credit, Mississauga, which is down by Lakeshore. It was a hotel residence thing, and we stayed there for a little bit, and then we moved down the street to Queensway and her Ontario area, and from there we lived in Mississauga our whole lives.
Hmm. And how do you feel about Mississauga? What does it mean to you?
Mississauga is like the only major city I've really known. Like I know the streets like the back of my hand. I know how to cut through any of the areas. I know if I'm in one area, I know how to get to the other area, in the quickest fashion or all the different routes. Um, it's definitely home, and then it's has a lot of amazing memories where it's where I grew up, like where I used to play around Square One or go on dates or go out with my buddies or bike around, and like where I get my car. There's a lot of memories and everything, but um, I think it's more so of the people, certain family members, certain friends that I've had within the Mississauga area and relationships that I've built. It's hard to it would be hard to replace.
Hmm. Do you see yourself staying there for the foreseeable future, the long term?
Uh, I am I am very flexible when it comes to where I'm going to go. So I haven't mentioned, but I am getting married in 23 days, and something that my fiance and I have talked a lot about is where we want to live, where we want to move to one day. And we have a lot of dreams of either moving to Hawaii. That's one of our top dreams, is to move to Hawaii. We were there last November, and we had such a great time. The people, the food, the culture, the atmosphere. Like when they say island time, like it's completely different, and from the way we live here in North America, of like go to work, get a job, and then you have 2 days off, and then you get 2 weeks off a year. Like that repetitiveness compared to the way they live, which I'm sure they still have to a certain point, but you find a lot more of the family culture, the good food, the healthy eating. Like you don't find lineups, or at least I didn't find as much lineups at like the McDonald's or the Tim Hortons or the Dunkin' Donuts. You find more lineups at like the little boutique shops and the mom and pop shops, which was really nice to see. They even had like shrimp stands. They would have like fried, like a seafood boil. So it's like they pretty much cook everything in like a big bag or like a big stew, and then you pull out just shrimp, and then you can walk through the streets and you're just eating shrimp. It's great.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. So
Uh,
if I were to move anywhere, it would definitely be Hawaii. But my parents are also a big part of my life, and my fiance's parents are as well. And we don't necessarily want to just up and move unless it's really worth it.
yeah, 100%. Well, I want to congratulate you, obviously, on your upcoming wedding. Really big next step. How are you feeling about it?
I'm feeling great. I can't wait to spend my life with her, and she's my best friend. She's my partner. I confide in her, and I know she can confide in me. And we have such a unique relationship because we're so goofy, and we can like our favorite moments. We were just talking about it the other day when she's like we'll do something, and then we'll both laugh at each other, and we'll just like die of laughter. And that's one of my favorite moments. And I'm a very like lighthearted kind of guy. When I need to be serious, I'm serious, but I'm usually very lighthearted and just kind of um, patient and just understand the way life is sometimes. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to start the next chapter. Obviously, like, all the things that come after is a bit different story, but in terms of marriage and being with her, I couldn't wait for anything else.
I'm really happy for you, and it's really important everything that you just mentioned to find that person and such a special person and have that kind of relationship. So I
For
think for
sure.
sure, once you have the plan, you start initiating your plan. I think everything falls into place eventually.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So, obviously, we met in the construction industry, and how did you find yourself in construction in the first place?
So as a kid, I used to love like taking things apart and like dissecting things and watching. I remember there was a plumber. I used to live in an apartment building, and there was a plumber that had come by to like do some changes, and we started talking. He was telling me like, yeah, the trades are really good. I was really young. I think it was maybe grade 5 or grade 6. And he was like, yeah, the construction industry is really good. And mind you, from the background or from the Middle Eastern side of it, being in construction isn't really something that like success like good smart people do.
Hmm.
Smart people go into becoming pharmacists or engineers or doctors or any of the nice big trades, any of the nice big professions. But there's nothing wrong with that, and they're all noble professions. But I don't believe it's the only way to be successful in life, and I don't think that's the only way to measure how successful somebody is. Because I know a lot of doctors that are not really good at their job, and they probably should not be doctors, right? But I also know a lot of nurses that should have became doctors because of how smart and passionate they are about the field, right? Um, and for me, I started right after high school, or well, in between high school as well. Like I would volunteer at my church's property in Mono, and actually not too far from where we'd work. And we would just do like little construction projects and like build a shed and a little chicken coop and whatnot. And from there, I fell in love with it, and then I got my first job actually from a guy that came to volunteer as well at the Valley, and we had both got each other's contacts, and then he's like, hey, like I'm doing a couple projects and I'm gonna be building my house if you want to come and help me out. And he's like, yeah, you need a hard hat, you need steel toes. And I think it was the he was the best person for me to start construction with, because he was very meticulous, maybe too meticulous, but I think for me to start off and to absorb like the best information that I can. He always drilled it in me, like routine, cleanliness, and organization. Like you need to have those things. And as you've seen on my job sites, that's the way I like to run things.
Hmm.
Now that's what separates me from everybody else, is when I start to do any work and I organize and I set up, they know that I'm about business, that I know that I take pride in the work that I do.
Yeah, 100%. So you've been working in construction for 10 years now?
Yeah, just about 10 years. Just about 10 years. So from that job, I had met this older gentleman named Tony, and he was a trim carpenter that came, and he was doing the work for the contractor that I was working for. And me and him, we exchanged numbers, and I'm like, hey, if you ever need a laborer in the future, by all means, go for it. What the builder had used to do was, or my boss had done was, he would set me up as the laborer for each trade. So he had buddies that were trades. He would set me up with the electrician. Hey, this is your guy. Get him to do all your labor. So I'd go drill all the holes. Okay, mark 17 inches off the floor, and then mount your box, and then go across and do this, and then okay, pull the wire from this point to this point. I wouldn't do any of the connections or anything, but he would just get me to do all that kind of stuff, and that would be the same thing for all of the trades: the plumber, the HVAC, um, the roofer. We had done all the framing ourselves, uh, and that's how I kind of learned everything. So from there I moved on to another job with Tony. Actually, I was working with the company that he was working with, and that's kind of where I really fell in love with custom homes and that side of it. So that's where I really found my passion of detail and executing at the highest level. because construction is such a broad trade, right? Like you can say construction, but you have like civil, you have commercial, you have industrial, right? You have then residential, then you have low-rise residential, you have high-rise residential, you have custom home residential, right? And then in that whole sector, there's so many different little subsectors of like, you have your soil engineers, you have your backhoe operators, you have this guy, that, like there's a lot of different areas, and I found that in custom homes, when you're catering to a specific one client and one client is requesting one product from you, it's different than working on a bridge. Not to say that working on a bridge isn't important, but to me it was a higher level of finish.
Hmm. I think I might have asked you this, but if there's any project in the world that you could do, that you could work on, what would it be?
Any project in the world that I could work on, what would it be? I think it would have to be like a custom home for like a Saudi prince, or um, Bill Gates or Tom Cruise or something. I think that would be like my dream. Like if you were to ask me what my dream job would be, or like who I would love to work for, it would only be two people. It would either be Faris Rafauli or Brian Balmer. So Brian Balmer, obviously, most people know him. He's the guy from HGTV. Faris Rafauli is the guy that designed and built Drake's house.
Okay.
So he is one of the most elegant and um, quality-driven architectural firms, because he also does the furniture.
Hmm.
So he does the architecturals, he does the interior design, and he makes the furniture.
Hmm.
And to another level of finish. I would love to work on any of his personal projects. Like if he was building another house for himself somewhere in Miami, or in another country, I would love to work on a project like that. Anything high scale with like, just I want the clients that are like, I want a waterfall from my bedroom going into my living room so I can slide down. Like those are the type of clients that I aspire to get.
Hmm. But do you like the designing side of it? Does that appeal to you?
Not so much, because I actually went to school for architecture for 2 years and then I dropped out. Um, and I wasn't big on the design. I wasn't like that side of it wasn't me. I think I'm more on efficiency and flow, because my whole thing is how are you going to flow within your home? What is your daily routines look like? What are your family goals? Are you planning on putting your kids through hockey and ballet and soccer and basketball and football, and like are you going to have that busy lifestyle? Are you planning on just being like having one kid and being like a very small little quiet family? Like how are you planning on living your life? And that's what I base the flow of the house. I don't so much um get involved with like wall colors or wall paneling and stuff like that. I will consult on it and be like, yeah, you know what, this is good, this isn't good, or this is common, this isn't common, or I personally like this, or I personally don't like that. But I try to stay away from the design side of it. I try to focus more on the building itself and constructing it to the best of my abilities.
100%. I just want to backtrack a little bit, because I'm really intrigued by the architecture school. So I have heard stories from some people in some places that the architecture schools are like living hell. The teachers put you through a lot. Is that an experience you had, or were you in a more relaxed environment?
So I wasn't in full architecture. I took architectural technology at Humber College, and it's essentially you are an assistant to the architect. You can pretty much do everything an architect does up to 3 stories, but you're not able to fully design a full scale, you know, warehouse or mall or any of those kind of things. Um, it was more so of the tediousness, I think it is, in the AutoCAD, and like the first year of architectural technology, it's all hand drawn.
Hmm.
It's all hand drawn, which I can understand in respect to, like, under to the craft and where it's developed. But also I think you take away time, valuable time that you can be putting in to teaching them AutoCAD and other um online based programs,
Hmm.
because that is what we now use. Nobody hand drafts. Nobody hand draws anymore. It's either on an iPad, or like if it's a little sketch, it's a designer in a house and she's quickly sketching on a wall. It's nothing intricate. So I think the focus on it, having a full semester where it was all hand drawing and drawing by hand, I think that was probably the most painful aspect of it. But it was just, for me, it was the 12 hours sitting on AutoCAD and drawing and your mouse moving back and forth, and it was a lot of strain on your eyes. And at a certain point, when I look at a screen, that's why, if you notice, I haven't been looking directly at the camera, because if I look at a screen for too long, my eyes start to water.
Hmm.
So I couldn't do the AutoCAD drawings for so long. And I realized my passion was more in the construction side of it, the hands-on, the getting my hands dirty and being in there and moving things around. And because that's where I originally started, right out of high school. And I don't regret not finishing. Um, I think everything happened for a reason, and I built a lot of amazing relationships with a lot of great trades, and had a lot of great mentors along the way that gave me tips and tricks and told me, like, focus on this, don't focus on this, like, try to work with this. And I wish I would have taken their advice a little bit more, um, but I think, again, everything happens for a reason, and I'm satisfied with where I am.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's definitely a case of sometimes we have a destination in mind, but it's the journey that's really the important part, you know? And even though you might have had that idea when you first started, it took you where you needed to be eventually, building those relationships, learning things, maybe even getting a more full idea of the whole process of construction, you know?
Mhm. Mhm. I always tell people, like, the way I view construction now is like as if it was like a blown up 3D model of a house, and you see all the parts and all the intricate little layers, and that's how I see the assembly, where it's like, okay, these all need to come together. How are we going to make it all come together?
Hmm. And could you ever see yourself going to study something else, construction related or unrelated?
Oh, definitely. I think I'm very open to it now more than ever. That, like, I am capable of a lot and I can do a lot, and whether that be going into a project management course just to improve my skills and further my business, or be more efficient at what I do. But am I like sitting here trying to think of, like, what's my next big thing? No, I think I'm willing to do it if it's the right time and everything, and I'm really passionate about it. I would definitely be interested in moving on to, like a sales side of it, like sales of homes, or like pre-construction homes, or building material. I
Hmm.
think because I've been in the industry for a while, and I used to do a lot of research on building materials, like plywood and casings, and what different ways of constructing a home efficiently and cost effectively. I would love to go into that kind of sales and be able to support people when it comes to building a home on another side of it.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I was I was just thinking, I don't know if this is still an ongoing idea or you have any developments, but it came to my mind that you were telling me about like the autonomous community that you were thinking about building, that you had that idea. Do you remember that? Is that something that you still think about?
An autonomous community?
Maybe autonomous community is the wrong word, but you told me that like a self-sufficient community.
Yes. Self-sufficient. That's if you get, a couple hundred people that you all love and have all the same goal. It would definitely work, but I think in our day and age, man, it's more of a dream. It's more of a dream than a reality.
Yeah. So no new developments on that.
No new developments. No new developments. I think maybe one day we'll be forced into that self-sufficient type of lifestyle. Um, but I think like willfully, people wouldn't be interested in it.
I find it really interesting that you say that we're going to be pushed into that because I feel the way the society is heading is the opposite direction. I feel like the idea of the the greater powers that be, not the greater power above, but the greater powers ruling our world, they specifically don't want those things to happen.
Yes, but I think there's going to come to a point where things are so bad that we need to revert to that because we no longer rely on the powers that be. I
Yeah.
like, and again, maybe this is a very negative way of seeing it, but I think we have to get we gotta get bad before we get better. We gotta get worse before we get better. So, um, I think people are very divided, and I think it's going to continue being like that. But I think you will also find strength in communities at a certain point. You'll see people standing with each other. You'll see people helping each other. Because I do believe the inherent good in people. I do believe that there is inherent good, whether that be something as simple as paying for somebody's coffee or holding a door open for something. I do believe that there is inherent good in people and that they can be that for their neighbors. Like I know most of the neighbors on my block. If any of them were to ever knock on my door and say, "Yo, I really don't have any food for today. Like,
Mhm.
do you mind if I borrow some food?" I would happily from the bottom of my heart. I wouldn't even wait for them after that. I would offer for myself so that they wouldn't put themselves in that position. Maybe that's just me, but um, I do believe that there is good people out there.
On the other side, do you think that everyone also has some inherent bad?
I think it maybe not necessarily inherent bad, but I think we do get to a point where we fall into our temptations, like or the seven deadly sins, if you want to call it that. Because I believe all sin derives from the seven deadly sins,
Mhm.
right? Whether it be you're doing something because of pride or greed or lust or envy or sloth or whatever the case is, right? Um, I think it's we as humans are weak in front of those issues, and that's a part of our issue is that we're weak in front of them.
Yeah, I think fundamentally the direction that we are moving as a society is we are trying to make everything as easy as possible for us. We're trying to take away the struggle, the survival mode, and we just want instant gratification. Like our
Yeah.
world is full, is filled, is put in front of our faces all these, these little dopamine boosts. And I think we have no idea the damage that we're really doing to ourselves. I think even, yeah, these all, and if we're going biblical here, these ideas people were conscious of a long time ago. Like you say, like you're pointing out the seven deadly sins. When you think about what those activities include, those are activities that include boosting your dopamine. They're the easy fixes. And it's crazy that we have kind of just been ignoring that for a long time, and now we're going a full satisfaction mode. We just want the easy fixes. We don't want to do things the hard way, the way that you really learn.
Mhm. It's always about what's the quickest. What's the quickest, what's the easiest, and I think our society now is, because we're so wrapped up in our jobs or our careers or this or our families, that we don't stop to enjoy the things that we actually want to enjoy, and we get so caught up in all of that we forget that oh, you know what, maybe this is a hobby that I actually like to do. Maybe I used to love running, but now I'm so tired because I come home from work and I'm stressed, and I don't have time to go out for a run,
Mhm.
right? Sorry, I tangent there completely.
No, no, you're on track. I think it's exactly that. You know, we really just want the quick solution. We
Yeah,
don't want to put in the work anymore.
for sure.
And even, right now, something that I'd like to start talking about is, I've always had, I started smoking weed nearly 10 years ago, on and off. And a few years ago, I realized, like, doing this every day, it just isn't, it's exactly that. It was putting me, I was lazy. I wasn't doing anything. I was gluttonous. I will eat anything when I'm stoned. I'll just eat and eat. I won't stop. And, filling all the others, yeah, for sure. But then with time, I realized, like, it just puts me in such an uncomfortable state. And recently, I completed my first year of smoking. Like, I've always been in this pattern of kind of doubling my time, and then I go back to smoke. And I did a couple of weeks ago. I started smoking again for a couple of weeks, and I just ended that cycle again. Like, I realized I was doing myself all this damage, and for what? I'm not achieving. I'm going against the things that I really want to achieve, the way I want to feel. So,
Sure.
time to start again. The counter, the days counter.
That's it. That's it. But it's good that you keep trying. Um, I know that a lot of other people struggle with the same thing, and people always say like weed is harmless, weed's harmless, weed's harmless, but I don't think weed's harmless. I think the most dangerous thing about weed is it makes you complacent in life, and it makes you complacent in anything you do. If you have enough to smoke up, you're okay.
Mhm.
If you're smoking up, if you haven't smoked up, then you're not okay. If you can't eat, if you haven't smoked up, you can't go out unless you smoked up. And um it's crazy how readily available it is in Canada.
Yeah.
And like you go into a dispensary now, it's full. Like there's a full lineup,
Mhm.
and you see everyone there from the youngest of the young, where like it's a 19-year-old kid that just turned 19 and now he can legally buy um cannabis. I don't know what the age is, 21 or whatever it is. Um, to the 87-year-old that's been smoking for the past 20 years. Like you see people from all age groups. I think it also does affect certain people differently. Some people can control, right? Just like how like, you can probably control your drinking more than you can control your smoke,
Mhm.
right? You probably enjoy smoking more than you enjoy drinking. And you can control your drinking where you don't wake up and have a drink in the morning. You don't go out like in the middle of the day and have 3 or 4 beers, right?
Mhm.
Um, but maybe when you are smoking, you do tend to smoke a little bit more. So I think everybody's like, it all depends on who you are and how what you allow it to be, right? Everybody has their vice. Everybody has their thing. And for some people, it's smoking. For some people, it's drinking. For some people, it's cigarettes. For some people, it's vape. For some people, it's porn. For some people, it's shopping, right? Everybody has their vice,
Mhm.
right? And I think it's all about like controlling your vices and controlling the things you do. But also being able to understand, like yourself, like, no, I can't control this, so I need to stop this.
Yeah. But again, all of the things you just mentioned, they all have the whole idea of pleasure in our brains. Just
Yeah.
is we just want that now. We want that solution now. We're happy to pay our real money when the way to make ourselves feel good in the long term is by taking care of ourselves, by doing exercise. You don't have to pay any money to go and do exercise. Anyone can exercise for free. Obviously we have ways, and I think even paying for a gym membership is a way to make it easier for yourself, because everything's organized in a way you can say, okay, I'm going to go in, I'm going to work out. Yeah, of course. And it's still so much cheaper than paying for all the other vices.
Mhm. For sure. For sure. And that's actually what's great about the gym is that for a lot of people it helps um, gain confidence. Like myself, it's one of my biggest confidence gainer. I was able to view myself differently, and when you push yourself and you really show that what you can do, um, it's a different ballpark. You view yourself differently.
Hmm. Yeah, 100%. So the last time we saw each other, we also it was a very I mean, I know the world is still a very strange place right now, but in that moment especially, it was very tense. Things were really kicking off between Palestine and Israel, and Ukraine and
Mm.
Russia, and even China and Taiwan. What do you think about the current state of the world?
Obviously, it doesn't look good. It doesn't seem good, no matter what channel you watch, whether it's Republican, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're liberal, whether you're conservative, whether you're Ukrainian, Russian, Palestinian, Israeli. Like, it doesn't look good on either side. Um, and this might seem harsh, but I feel like the world goes through cycles of peace and war, peace and war, peace and war, peace and war. And I've now come to view it as that, as cycles, as this too shall pass. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. Everything will pass, whether it's good, whether it's bad. It will pass. And I think the biggest thing about understanding that mindset is nothing is really in your control unless it's in your thoughts. Your thoughts are the only things that are in your actual control. Because everything else, even if you say you're going to do something, but your car breaks down or something happens, it um I've stopped worrying. I've been praying more about all of these issues, and I really hope that these people, um, find a way to peace and find a way to sustain peace. Because what breaks my heart is the families that had absolutely nothing to do with this. Because the people that are dying in all of these conflicts are not the ones that are in charge of any of these rules. They're not the ones that are going out and doing these acts of terror, whether it be in Ukraine or Russia or Palestine and Israel or Yemen or any of these areas,
Mhm.
right? It's not the people that are dying that are doing this. It's the casualties. And unfortunately, it's just pure casualties, and that's the way they keep seeing it as just casualties of war, and that's what really breaks my heart. Is the everyday people like me and you that were just going to work and the bomb happened to fall or whatever ends up happening. So that's really what breaks my heart, and I hope it all gets better, and we can find a way to peace. But I believe that it's going to get worse before it gets better.
I sure as shit hope it gets better. But I
Mhm.
think it is, like you say, casualties happen for so many innocent people. And unfortunately, that goes unspoken of, generally speaking, because for them, all these governments have their motives, the financial motives more than anything. For them, they don't have the connection with the thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people who are dying at their hands. They have their eyes on the hundreds of millions of dollars. The, maybe a couple of months away, a couple of years away from them.
Mhm. For sure. Sure.
So I'll try and move on to something a bit lighter anyway. Have you? I don't remember. Have you been back to visit your home in Sudan since you've been in Canada?
Yeah, so we went back in 2006. We went and visited my grandfather. He had just had a stroke, and my mom wanted to go check up on him. And yeah, we got to experience a little bit of Sudan. We were only there we were away for a month. We were in Sudan for 3 weeks, and then we went to Egypt for 1 week.
Hmm.
It was a very humbling experience because obviously, like going from Sudan to Egypt to Canada, and like living the Canadian life, and then going back to Sudan in grade 6 or 7. Um, all the luxuries that we had and we grew up with are no longer there. Where it's like where's the toilet? Why is there a hole in the ground at this restaurant, or why is there a hole in the ground at this place? It's, and why aren't the roads paved? Why are the cars like this? Why are people selling things on the side of the road like that? Why are there sheep everywhere and goats and stuff? Um, but that it was a very humbling experience for sure, to say the least.
Hmm. But you haven't been back since 2006
No,
because the civil war was 2008. No, that was when, or was it happening around that time, 2006?
no, I think it happened after. It was way after. Civil War didn't happen until I could be wrong, but I think like 2012 or 2013, somewhere around that range. I remember it was way later that the Civil War had kicked in. Where what you're talking about the split
Yeah, the split.
in the
That was
North Sudan.
the
So,
time of civil war.
sorry?
The split didn't happen because of civil war.
Yes, yes, you're right. Oh, you mean the current Civil War, the one that's going on right now?
No, I was referring to the one
We've
the
had a couple. Sorry.
because South Sudan became a country in 2008, I believe. Let me have a look.
If you scroll me
2000,
on my own,
2011.
it's closer.
So do you have any plans on visiting again?
I would love to visit again, but I don't know if you've heard about the recent Civil War. Um, but the army and this other I group um are fighting back and forth, and hundreds of thousands of millions of people have been displaced throughout Sudan. Um, some of them being my family members on my father's side, where they've and my mother's side, where they've all had to leave Sudan and go to Egypt.
Mhm.
And now they're seeking refuge in Egypt, and they're trying to work on their papers and figure out what the next step is. My father's side, they all want to go back. They were born, they were raised in that village, and they want to live there to the end of their lives. So they'll definitely go back. But for myself, unless the situation gets any better, I don't see I don't see a way back.
Mm. If I
We've always sorry, I want to mention this. There's always this dream that my brother and I had growing up as kids. We said that one day we would make it, we would make a lot of money, and we would go and we would buy Sudan. As if there was like a guy waiting on the side of the road with a sign that says like here's Sudan, and like please wait for it. But we've always had this dream that like we want to rebuild it. We want to see its prosperity because the people are the most hospitable, kind-hearted, um, welcoming people that you will ever meet. If you ever get a chance to go to Sudan and you experience their hospitality, it's world class. It's world
Mhm.
class.
Yeah, I would love to visit one day. One day I would love to visit every country in the world. That's been a dream. I think it will be. I hope one day to achieve that, and I hope to get to know your country one day. If
Sure.
I remember, your both of your parents are half Egyptian, half Sudanese, right?
Yes, technically, we are full Egyptian, right?
Okay.
And um, but we consider ourselves half Sudanese and half Egyptian because we were born and raised in Sudan. But the Coptic people, um, or the people that are of light skin in Sudan, right? They're considered the Egyptians. We've migrated, right? So over centuries ago, um, my great grandparents and my father's great grandparents and sorry, my father's great parents and my mother's great grandparents had all immigrated to Sudan, um, due to some political issues. They immigrated from Egypt to Sudan due to some political issues around farming or something like that, from my recollection. And when they had moved to Sudan, they started farming. So something a lot of people don't know about Sudan, but there's a Arabic legend that says that Sudan can feed the world, of how rich its soil is.
Yeah.
And actually, if you can actually go on Google Earth and take a look at this, but you will find that there's like massive acres of crops. So Sudan, they say Sudan can feed the world, and it has the soil is so rich and so clean that it can farm just about any crop and be able to produce quite a bit.
Hmm.
So we've always had that dream to go back and, um, one day allow Sudan to rise up again. And it's so rich in minerals and oil and gold and all of these other uh, important commodities that we use. It's so mismanaged that we don't know how to use it.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, in general, that is the sad story of Africa. I'm not just Africa, South America too. I think uh, leftover effects of colonization. So many of the resources have been taken, and there were gaps in power that were seized, and as a result of that, there's a lot of corruption and things holding the whole continent from really progressing to what it could be.
Because at one point they were very progressive. Like Egypt, they used to call Egypt the Paris of the Middle East,
Yeah.
right? And if you ever, even if you watch like videos of Egypt back in the day in Alexandria or in Cairo and all this, like they were developed, they
Mhm.
were manufacturing. Sudan too. They were Sudan was known as being a hub for all these different expats. Where, like, so my mom's neighbors were Italian,
Mhm.
Italian Sudanese. And then she got married to an a Sudanese Syrian. So
Mhm.
they both consider themselves Sudanese, but neither one of them actually have Sudanese blood,
Yeah.
right? They were just immigrated there, but they had called Sudan home for so long that and so for so many generations that they eventually they called it home.
Yeah. What do you, this might be a bit controversial asking this question, but that's what a lot of our conversations have consisted of. What are your thoughts on Gaddafi and his dream for a united Africa?
Gaddafi. Gaddafi had his faults. He had his issues. And the one thing that nobody will ever deny is that Gaddafi loved his people. And
Hmm.
he loved the fact that the Arab countries were rising. They were making money. They were growing. And all he wanted to do was he was like, Africa's just the same. Africa should be just the same as us. There
Mhm.
should be no difference. They should be able to grow as well. And when he had come out with the idea to unite Africa with the gold backed currency, right? That would have been revolutionary. That would have been that would have changed the course of history if
Yeah.
you think about it. It would have changed how the petrodollar works now. It would have changed how the European Union looks. It would have changed how all of that functions because now we have real value in our currency or in a currency, right? So he he could have done it. He could have done it. Unfortunately, with all the things that had happened surrounding his death, and um, I don't think Gaddafi was a horrible human being. I think he looked out for his people. He had a lot of government resources to help new families, new newborns, all that kind of stuff. That like some of the same principles that we carry now in Canada,
Yeah.
right? That he had, and then some. It wasn't even just one side of it. It was like more, and he was looking to like for his people to be prosperous and grow, and the economy to grow, right? But obviously, politics is politics, and the way it planned out is the way it panned out.
I think I remember. No, what was I thinking of? Yeah, this is the whole question about like if democracy really has a net positive or a a net negative at the end of the day, because it's really hard to say, and it's a very complex question. I don't think there's one straightforward answer, but I remember distinctly that we did have a conversation that because there are different versions of freedom, everyone has a different perspective on what freedom is at the end of the day. And for some people, that freedom, no, I'm not going to put words into anyone's mouths because I really think freedom is a very individual perspective. We all think something different of it. But the version of
Yep.
freedom that he was fighting for was that people really had a start in life, that things were shared out more equally, more evenly. People didn't have to worry about the things that they shouldn't have to. The dream was
Yep.
that people could build their families and never have to worry about where they would sleep, or if they would have food to eat, sending their children to school. To
Which was all it was all sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. It was all basic necessities, right? It's not like he was trying to give away millions of dollars so people can go buy Porsches.
Mhm.
These were all basic necessities so that people could be able to thrive in life and not just live, where they can focus on raising their children the way they want to, right? And not just sending them to daycare for 8 hours a day, and then preschool, and then grade one and PK, and then all the grades. Like it's that there needs to be, where his perspective was, there needs to be time for the family as well. There needs to be time for the mother to be with the kids, for the father to be with the kids. Mind you, in the Arab countries, most of the mothers don't work, but um it was still something that was they wanted the fathers to know that they were taken care of.
Yeah, yeah, yes, but there are a lot of scare tactics used against those, and so much propaganda. I think that came from, I don't know which era specifically, but I guess post World War II, and I mean beyond that time, from the States, the whole anti-communism, giving people things, making sure their citizens are taken care of is considered communism and socialism, and it is dangerous and scary. Unfortunately, this is the
See,
the picture that's been painted now.
exactly. And don't get me wrong, I don't think communism works. I don't think socialism works.
It doesn't exist.
I think what works is a hybrid of all. Maybe democratic socialism, or
Mm.
democrat or communist socialist democrat, or not democrat, sorry, um sorry, no words, like socialism and communism and democracy. I think you need a balance at a certain point. You need to have your people taken care of, but they also need to be able to work. They also need to know the value of what they're doing. They also need to be able to be prideful in who they are. Are they going to stand to their word? Or are they going to find ways to cheat the system?
Mhm.
Right? I think that's what it really comes down to, where it's if you want this like this one world peace and everybody's in peace and everyone loves each other and everyone's good, it has to be like a beehive. The bee, when it's in the nest, does not think of just itself.
Yeah.
It thinks of everything but itself. If it's a worker, it works. If it's a soldier, it watches. If it's one of the ones that look after the eggs, then that's what it does. Right? Each one has its job, and each one does its job without looking at like, oh wow, look at her. Look at that bee. She gets to be with the queen bee, and like it's always for the greater good of the society of the hive. And I think the moment we start to live our lives um in that same, not mindset, but the way with that same um philosophy, is when we will have peace, is when we will have oneness, and we will be able to sing lullabies and kumbaya, and sing around the campfire. It's that, but other than that, we will never be able to achieve peace. We'll never be able to achieve a peaceful society or a good society or a prosperous society, because everyone's just going to be going out to get themselves. It's whatever works for themselves. Like consumerism is the most me, where it's I need this now. And I need to go to the store, I need to buy it right now because I need to wear this tomorrow. Because how can people see me without this? Or how can I live without this? It's that readily available, quick, easy, and it goes back to what we were saying with quick fixes, right?
Mhm.
Like in the dopamine rush. It's people want that right away, where it's, oh, TV broke, okay, let's go to Costco. You can go to Costco, you can buy 75-inch TV for under $1,000, right? Or where back in the day, a Panasonic TV 42-inch would be $1,500.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? People, yes, it's technology has gotten cheaper, but people have also gotten so easy to like, it's okay, throw it out, get a new one, throw it out, get a new one, throw it out, get a new one. Back in the day, everyone used to fix things. Used to, okay, the washing machine's broken, let's find the part that needs to be replaced. Now it's all about, okay, it doesn't work, throw it out.
I just I always feel so lost about like where we changed as a society, where we went wrong, because I feel like both of us, you're still in your 20s, right? You're late
Yeah,
20s.
yeah, late
Uh,
20s.
so obviously in your life you've seen that change a lot, and even in my life, I was born in
Yeah.
2000, and the first 10 years of my life were very distinct from the ones preceding.
Yeah.
Obviously there were some big factors there. The availability of phones. I grew up, like I say, the first 10 years I didn't have a phone. I
Mhm.
had some technology, I had some game systems, but my life wasn't focused around technology. After school, we went to the park, we played with friends. Like, it was still very social. We didn't have our faces glued to the screens.
Mhm.
But then when I entered into secondary school, it's like, okay, everyone has a phone. And now you're starting to use it more. And then it's like, it's just blown up in the last 5 years. We can barely go 5 minutes without looking at a screen,
Yeah. Because
And
and you even look at kids now. Sorry, continue. I keep cutting you off.
what I think I was just the point I wanted to get at was, like you were saying, we built this world together. Fundamentally, we built this world together, and now we have a total disconnection from that. We have our self-interests at heart. We live our lives in such selfish ways. Like, for example, you're talking about the immediate, um, the convenience of Amazon, for example. You know, by us ordering things from Amazon, it's like, you know how people are literally suffering working for Amazon. You know, these people can't fucking take a break to go and piss because they get penalized for it. These people are working in uncomfortable positions for minimum wage, being squeezed from the guy at the top, and the people at the top are making all the money, and then this little guy at the bottom is just doing the job he has to survive.
Yeah,
And by us consuming, by saying, okay, I need this tomorrow or today, even maybe, like we're contributing to that.
yeah,
We're all guilty of it in some way or another.
of course. And I think it's like our complacency in it is what we're guilty of, right? Because we don't go out of our way and we change the way we do things, right? That's where the issue falls, is that we're not doing anything to change. So we're guilty in that as well, because if we're not doing anything to change, and we keep adapting to it, and we keep getting the newest smartphones, and we keep getting the best laptops, and we keep adapting to all of this, that's where it takes off, and now it starts to control us in a sense, where it's like, oh, I need to check my Instagram every 20 minutes. I need to have the 10 likes within the first 10 minutes of me posting it. I need to have that dopamine. I need to have that reassurance,
Hmm.
that I'm doing well or I'm doing okay, or because there again, it's also comparing, right? A lot of people, when they scroll through Instagram, and again, Instagram is only done so that you post your best. Nobody sits there and posts pictures of themselves, unshaved and in their dirty basement or whatever. They they post the pictures of the once a week where they got dressed up, and that they went out and with a nice car or whatever. They don't post the reality. They post the fiction or their perception that they want you to see.
Mm.
And I think that becomes the biggest problem, because then everyone's competing with each other, but nobody knows that everybody's lying and everyone's just putting on a mask. But the moment that they realize, okay, he's wearing a mask, I'm wearing a mask, that guy's wearing a mask, then what's real?
Mm.
Who's real in all of this? What is the actual truth behind all of this? Who are the people behind these masks? That's why they also say, like, you never want to meet your heroes,
Yeah, yeah.
because you don't know who that person is, and you have this vision of them in your head, but it could be completely wrong.
Mm. Do you have any heroes?
Jesus Christ,
It's one of the
he's the number one hero.
Well, it is one of the Ten Commandments to not worship idols, no?
Yeah, but I think to have heroes is not to have an idol. I think it's very similar to when you have a mentor or something like that. Like, for instance, I'm a big Marvels guy. I love Marvels. My fiance had got me a watch a couple years back. It says Tony Stark, proof that Tony Stark has a heart. And it's an
Mm.
actual Marvels watch. So I'm a massive Marvels fan. I love all things Marvel. But I would love to meet Robert Downey Jr. one day. I'd
Mm.
love to meet him. Do I idolize him and want to be like him? No. I see him as a really cool guy, and he has really great acting skills, but I don't want to be like him necessarily. Right? That's why I would say Christ is my hero, because I want to imitate him. I want to do my best to portray the love that he showed, portray the love and kindness, and like we say in the Orthodox faith, he came and he taught us the ways of salvation,
Mhm.
right? And my goal in life is to ultimately be as close of an image, although I know I will never achieve that, to him as possible.
Mm. How do you want to talk a bit about your journey on that with your religion? How do you feel connected at the moment?
For me with religion, like, I grew up, again, as I mentioned earlier, within the church and surrounded by the community and the priest, and I was ordained deacon. And we used to go on conventions and trips down to New York and Buffalo and Niagara Falls and Blue Mountain, and we would have all of these great experiences. And I think at a certain point, you become you take it for granted because you're just like, okay, this is just all what I grew up with. It's all the same. Um, and when you take it for granted, you lose the beauty in it.
Mhm.
It's no longer as beautiful because you just see it as regular. And for a while there, I was distant from the church, and I was distant from my faith, and uh, God wasn't on my mind at all. And I lived my life. I partied, I drank, I smoked, I had fun, I did what I wanted to do, and it wasn't. And it's funny how uh, God finds a way to re-enter your life. He finds ways to come back and make you realize that He's always there because
Mhm.
he was always there through that time, even though that you weren't paying attention. He took care of you, but you just never noticed. So I'm at a point now where like I noticed that he took care of me. I noticed that he's continuing to take care of me. And now I want to talk to him and be with him and get closer to him. Like it's almost like when you realize that you've had a really good friend
Mhm.
and you know like they have always supported you but you've never really like paid much attention, and you've always kind of like brushed them off or like you know just had like a very casual relationship with them, but then you realize like this friend really does love you and cares about you and wants the best for you, and now all you want to do is like you want to make that person happy because of how much care and effort that they put into you,
Mhm.
right? And in terms of me and my faith, it's the only thing I have. It's the only thing that I can stand on because I've tried standing on everything else. I've tried um, putting more hours at work. I've tried saving money. I've tried doing this. I've tried like, and none of that stuff brings you true peace.
Mhm.
Nothing does like when you build and you have a relationship with God, knowing that He's always there, knowing that you're always taken care of, that you never have to worry about where your next meal is or any of those things by just simply saying like it's in your hands. It's in your hands. I submit my will to you. Whatever you want to do, I'll follow. And not to say that like this is his life that I'm just living, but it's almost like when you're in a car and you're driving and you're trying to get to a destination. Your GPS is working, but if you don't listen to your GPS, you're never going to get to that destination.
Mhm.
So now I'm starting to listen to that GPS a little bit clearly.
Do you believe that God has a plan for everyone, or do you believe it's a plan that maybe you work together in making?
I think in terms of a plan, I think God knows where he wants you to end up.
Mhm.
And he knows the person in his wisdom. He knows the person that Ben is, and he knows the person that Carlos is. And he knows what's going to make Ben make a left or make a right. So sometimes he'll put those things in your path so that you can make those decisions. We don't always make that right though, and we don't always make that left. But he's hoping that if he brings it in front of us enough times, that we make that decision. In the same manner that I believe the devil tempts you. The devil puts it in front. He doesn't force anybody to do anything,
Mhm.
but he puts it in front of you. And he says, you could. It's not that bad. who's really going to know, right? And I believe that's how he kind of tricks us into following his path and living that way.
Mm.
But ultimately, it's up to us who we listen to,
Yeah.
right? Metaphorically, if you want to look at it, you could look at it as like the devil and the angel sitting on your shoulder, right? Imagine if you always had those on your shoulders and every decision you made was either for one or the other.
Yeah. I think to put it to contextualize it to what we've been talking about, I think God, from what you're saying, God puts the suffering in our way to test us, and the devil puts these temptations, being the instant gratification, in our way to test us and to try and lure us.
Yeah, yeah, in a sense, yes. Now, I don't think God puts suffering necessarily, and nor do I think God's looking for us to suffer. But I think our ultimate suffering would be us in hell,
Mm.
right? I think ultimate suffering would be us in hell. So it's like if you had a child, right? And he's like, I want to go jump off the bridge with all my buddies. They all do it. And there's all so much fun. And you're like, okay, that's cool, but we don't do that. I don't want you to do that. I'm trying to keep you safe. You in that moment are comparing and saying, well, these guys do it and they're safe, they're fine. Why can't I do it? But your father knows the dangers behind it. It
Yeah.
knows that it just takes one extra jump or one jump the wrong way. You can die or you can get drowned or you can hit a rock or whatever the case is. Um, so I think that's the way God sees it, where it's like he puts certain things in front of you so that you don't, or you think twice, or you learn from it, right? Because certain people, they'll make a mistake a million times,
Yeah.
right? Like like whether it be smoking weed or drinking or pornography or sex or this or that, like we make the same mistakes over and over and over and over again, right? But it's if you stop for a moment and you allow yourself to be like, okay, I'm not going to allow this one, and you control every thought that comes into your mind, and you control the seven deadly sins. You control those, and that's what I believe. Like religion, in any aspect, is to achieve the way like you become stronger in your faith, whether it be Islam or Buddhism or Judaism or Christianity or any of these, is that you have to deny yourself the worldly pleasures,
Mm-hmm.
the worldly things, like you don't allow yourself to fall into that. You allow yourself to rise up above it and say, I am not going to allow this substance or this thing, this worldly thing, to affect me. Like we say in our church, after, I believe it's one of the epistles, do not love the world nor the things that are in it. The world shall pass away and all its riches,
Mm-hmm.
but the word of God will grow and multiply, or it will be fruitful and multiply, something like that. Right. So it's the things of this world are going to keep us attached to this world. But for us to be separated and for us to be closer to a higher power, in my perspective, it's Jesus Christ and God, um, is by denying ourselves those things and saying, no, I'm not gonna partake of this, even though I want it, even something as simple as food. Because if you think about like Adam and Eve and the original sin, how did the devil tempt Eve?
With the apple.
Food, gluttony, the
Mm.
most basic human right. That's why a lot of different cultures promote fasting, right? Or abstaining from certain food or eliminating certain foods from your diet, whether that being vegan, vegetarian, or whatever, or kosher,
Mm-hmm.
right? The it's all about controlling what you eat and what you put into your body, and by if you're able to control the basic necessity of what I put into my body, you're able to control other aspects of your life. So you start with that. You start with the food, and you grow from there. You see what else. Okay, do I anger easily? Do I get angry easily? Or do I get jealous easily? Okay, why do I get jealous? Okay, when I get jealous, how do I make myself not get jealous? Be thankful. Like you combat that with thankfulness, gratitude, right? Whichever way you want to look at it, whether you want to say thank God or I'm thankful.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, you are playing a game within your own mind and saying to yourself that you're happy regardless of what other people have, and you're not going to look at it. So there's always ways that we can combat the seven deadly sins, which will ultimately bring us closer to our higher power and help us throughout our life.
Yeah, 100%. And I think from everything that we've just talked about, like it's crazy that how it relates to it's so relatable to everyone, even outside of religion. These religious ideas, they were brought about being connected with where we are, where we come from, the people who we spend our time with, and I think is so important. And now, even if religion, it doesn't feel like the answer for some people, I still feel personally like I'm very grateful that I was raised a Christian, like understanding some of the stories in the scriptures. Even though I don't feel so connected to the religion now, I've never considered myself an atheist. I've always felt some degree of closeness to God, to a higher power. And I do think I do appreciate the things that the way I was raised, the in that whole environment, and that community. And I think the community part is very important, about having like-minded people around you. And I
Mhm.
think this is a conversation some people, it turns some people off about religion, the whole institution part. And it's like there are definitely levels to that. You have religion comes, we have our own personal relationship with God, or our respective religion. And then you have your smaller community, maybe your inner circle, you could call it, the people in your life that you love and trust and care about. And then you have your slightly wider community, that's your church or your religious group, or wherever, the people that you, maybe it's where you start distancing yourself in terms of some beliefs or views, but it doesn't mean that you're not connected by the same entity. And then above that, you have the whole, the church, the entity of the church, which is more political and economical. And I think this is what turns a lot of people away from religion, because they're thinking about that the whole church is everything. And it's like, but we still have so much that we can gain from these religions, even if one doesn't believe in any god or any figure. The teachings from the books are really, really important, a lot of them, and the beautiful stories, if nothing more, but really beautiful perspectives on life, I think. So before we start,
With that, sorry, with that, I want to tell you, never stop searching. Never stop searching for God. Never stop calling out to Him. Even if, like, and this goes out to anybody that is struggling with their faith, whether that be Islam, whether that be Christianity, whether that be Judaism or Buddhism or Hinduism, whatever it is that you follow, ask for the most of it. Get everything that you can from your faith. Don't stop searching. Don't stop questioning. And it's actually a good thing to question. I always tell people, question your faith.
Mhm.
Because the more you question the faith, the more you will you will come to understand your faith. My fiance, when we started dating, because she's Filipino and she comes from a Catholic background, so her being Catholic, she's like, "What's the difference? What's the difference between Orthodoxy and Catholic?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, my liturgy is longer than yours." Okay, and so then I said, "Okay." Why is my liturgy longer than hers? Why is it like that? And you go back and you research and you look and you say, okay, yeah, because we are part of the older traditions. There was councils at a certain point and they divided. Okay, this is why we're done. And I really thank God for bringing her into my life, because it's helped me grow my faith and grow my knowledge of God and of the history of my church, and because we're rooted in so much symbolism and so much history. Every tune, every verse, every line is perfectly curated for the time of day, the place, the hour. Like it's so specific to everything that we do, and it's symbolized, and it's all for our salvation. It all goes back to God. It all goes back to Christ and his and what he has done for us, and how it all ties in. And we have different time periods in the church, where we have a time period where we focus on the Holy Spirit. We focus on God the Father. So we God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. So those are the three times that we break up the year, and then that's how we base our biblical readings. So in the church, when we read our different the different verses, it's all based on what the theme of that time period is, and all the hymns are different. So in conclusion, search for what you believe in. Don't just believe it because that's what you were raised to believe, and that was what you wanted to hear, and you don't want to believe in anything else, because it's the hardest part to saying, maybe I was wrong,
Mhm.
or maybe I understood this incorrectly, or maybe I was taught this incorrectly, and this perspective is the true perspective. And I believe the more you search for God, the more God will find you. He's standing at the door knocking. Are you going to answer? Are you going to allow him to come in? Are you going to allow him to have a conversation with you? Or are you just going to continue living your life ignorantly and blindly?
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's always going to be a process, and like you say, even now, you still want to search and bring yourself closer to God, and I think it's really important that we hold on to those relationships and that we want to grow them with whichever entity one might believe in. I think it's really important. The idea of faith, I think, has a net positive in our lives for sure. Um, what I wanted to ask before the interview, you told me that you had a couple of questions that you had wanted to ask me, and you stumped me before. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to throw them at me now.
Okay, so I think the first one would be, what was your most humbling experiences in your travels?
Most humbling experiences. Um, wow, you really have thrown me on the spot. Okay, humbling experiences.
Like what have you experienced where you're like, wow, like I am grateful for everything I have, and like that, like something that really stood out to you that really made you appreciate life a little bit more.
Yeah, I think straight off the top of my head, a really good friend of mine, like a brother to me. He's from Chile. I might have told you this story before.
Mm.
Um, we met in Australia just over 4 years ago. He came and stayed with me in London, and he met my family, my small family, and I'd made the plan to go and visit him in South America. So when I arrived in Chile, he picked me up at the airport at 11:30. We drove to his house, and I told him, like, okay, I'm gonna be tired from it was a 14-hour flight, so we'll have a little catch up, and then we'll get an early night, and then we'll start the day, and blah blah blah. So he picks me up from the airport, really happy to see me. I was so happy to see him, and we're driving for half an hour. He takes me to his house, and his whole family was there waiting for me. And it was like, wow, this was not what I was expecting at all. I thought I was just gonna rest, and then he was gonna introduce me to his family the next day. But like these people who I couldn't communicate with because my Spanish wasn't there. They didn't. Most of them don't speak English, so it was like I'm just thrown into the deep end. But these people who I've never met, his whole family were there with a welcome party for me to such a beautiful continent, and such a beautiful family. They're like my second family. Um, I think that moment really, I think about it very fondly. I think about it a lot, and I went and visited them again. I've stayed with them 3 or 4 times now, and it's like they're such amazing and special people, and it's a memory that I'll never forget.
Very nice. Very nice. And you deserve it, man. You're a great guy, and I'm glad you got to experience that.
Thank you. You have any other hardball questions for me?
What was your craziest experience?
Craziest experience. I think before I would have jumped on the in Barcelona when I was robbed. And it is a bit of a long story, but I don't know if I could really call that my craziest experience now, because it was just a lot of. Now I look back and I can acknowledge that there were a lot of silly mistakes. I started off the day and really eat much throughout the day, and then I got there, and the first thing I do is I go to a bar and start drinking, socializing, and then I went on a bar crawl, and I don't remember so much of the night. I ended up being thrown out of a club. Um, I I was on the floor with a bloody face. Got taken to a hospital. They stitched up my face. I left the hospital, and then a guy took me to, like, I don't know, these random apartments somewhere in Barcelona, and they ended up taking my phone, my wallet, and my passport. But I know that situation. There's more details to the situation, and I could have been more responsible. In terms of at that point in my life, yeah, of course, it was the craziest thing that happened to me. Um, I feel like after that, I haven't been taken by surprise so much, and maybe I'm a little. I think I've got my wits to me more. I don't think I would put myself in such a stupid situation again.
Yeah.
But I think that's the story that I would tell. At that time of my life, it was a lot. As you can imagine, losing your phone,
Yeah.
your passport is heavy.
And to be honest, maybe that's what you needed, so that like going forward in your travels, you were prepared a little bit more.
Yeah,
You know.
100%. 100%. Any
I think
more?
my last question would be, where was your least favorite? Where was your least favorite destination, or what was your least favorite experience?
Least favorite destination. Um, I really don't think that I can. I never feel like I leave a place with a negative feeling. I can't think. Nowhere in my mind sticks out that, like, I wish I hadn't been there, or I wouldn't go there again. There are places that wouldn't be on my priority, but I wouldn't say that I wouldn't go there again. And I feel like if I'm talking about an experience, I would be talking about a general period, and I feel like that would be leaving a place, having not really, uh, finished properly. Not having organized myself. I could maybe say Toronto.
Oh yeah.
I could maybe say Toronto, but I think again I was there because I had to be there. I had to be there at that time. But the reason why I think that is like I just left without doing things that I needed to, and it's a pattern that I kind of find myself repeating. That is not necessarily a clean breakup when I'm moving on from a place. I just kind of leave, like the Irish goodbye,
Yeah.
you know. And it's something that I want to work on. I try, but it's yeah about leaving without tying up all the loose ends.
Yeah. Understand.
So yeah, those were your questions. I hope I gave some
Yeah.
better answers than the last time.
That's perfect.
So now I will throw my three questions at you. So
Right.
I'll give you all three at once, and you can respond as in how you would like. So the first question is from the last guest, which happened to be me. And my friend interviewed me last time. So what would the first three things that you would do in a zombie apocalypse be? That's my question to you. I need a question from you to ask the next guest. And I would like a message. What message would you give in your language?
Okay. So I'll start with the zombie apocalypse because those are one of my favorites. Um, so I think the first thing I would do I would pray. I would pray as hard as I possibly could. And the second thing I would do is hit up Bass Pro Shop. You know Bass Pro Shops, all right?
A fishing shop.
Yeah, but it's a fishing and hunting shop, so they have all the rifles. I actually have my own crossbow,
Oh, what?
as you can see right there.
Daryl Dixon.
Um, so I just need to get some more arrows and whatnot. I would prepare, and then I would drive up to my church's property, and I would start building my fortress.
Nice. How long
Uh,
do you think it would last?
Honestly, I think it could last a while. I think it could last a while because like the my church's property, it's a retreat center, so they have everything you can imagine. Like there's a full kitchen, it's usually stocked up with food. You're on 306 acres of land,
Mhm.
right? Like there's several buildings. I even thought about like going over to the neighbor because he has a bunch of tractors, and then getting a bunch of cars and stacking them up in front of the place. Like I thought of it all. I thought of it all.
You already have this emergency plan.
Oh, I've had this emergency plan. Like I've been I guess like growing up, I got sucked into the YouTube rabbit holes
Mhm.
of like all the conspiracies and like the world's gonna end, this apocalypse gonna happen, and like I remember as a kid, one of my first like real fears was an ice age. And
Yeah.
I remember going up to one of my elementary school teachers, and I'm like, "Do you think we're gonna have an ice age? What are the possibilities we're gonna have an ice age? I don't know about this. Like, I think we're gonna have an ice age." And she's like, no, like that's not something that's gonna happen. So I think starting off like as a young kid, I was always into like that, like preparing and like figuring out like what's gonna happen and but obviously now I live my life and I pray God takes care of me and my family. And that's all I can really ask for. The question I would ask somebody else, um, trying to think of something generic. If you could have dinner with anyone throughout history, time, up until this date, who would it be and why?
One person.
One person.
Okay.
And my message. I'm trying to think of like the good because I speak Arabic, but my Arabic is very broken. and I've been advised by my mother and my family not to speak Arabic, so I don't embarrass myself. But I'll do my best. محبة الله تكون معكم, which translates to may the love of God be with
Very nice. Beautiful message.
you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
it's been lovely to catch up and make this episode with you. Thank you for being a part of this project.
Thank you for asking me. It was a pleasure catching up with you. And if you ever have loose ends to tie up in Toronto, give me a call.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Stay in touch, brother.
Thank you. This has been episode 6, Backpacks and Stories. Thank you.
Bye-bye.